Hi guys, welcome to everyone. We have a lot of participants from, of course, students and a lot of industry professionals who have been waiting to join us for this session. So, on behalf of my entire team at Lamarck School of Arts, I, Samira Shah, welcome all of you for this webinar series, which is Signature and Inspirational Journey of Pathbreakers. Today we have with us the most dynamic Wabiz Mehta, who's been who's been a show director and a fashion choreographer in the industry, who's playing a very significant role. She's often completely in control of the glamorous shows that we see, but from the console, and she makes sure that all the audience have an amazing experience of and the best of experiences by the a lot of creativity that she puts into her shows. She's always been experimental, but has given a lot of multidimensional creativity to the shows by her unique and innovative ideas. Often, I'm sure we are all waiting to hear her and see all of this and experience it over the period of the entire conversation. But before we begin, and before I have Babis begin to start her conversation, can we have a quick video to see her in action? So, Sakshi, can I please request you to play the video?
Wake up in your bedroom and there's nothing left to say. When I try to talk, you're always playing board games. I wish I had Monopoly over your mind. I wish I didn't care all the time. We're just playing hide and seek. It's getting hard to breathe under the sheets with you. I don't wanna play no games. I'm tired of always chasing after you. I don't give a fuck about you anyways. Whoever said I give a fuck about you? You never share your toys or communicate. I guess I'm just a play date to you. Ring around the rosy. I never know what you need. Ring around the rosy. I wanna give you what you need.
Wow, this was fantastic. And most of us, I'm sure, a few of our students who had the pleasure of working with you have had this experience also of seeing you so much in action. So, Wabis, I'm sure we are spellbound by your creativity, and for every fashion show that you direct, there's so much of hard work, and I'm sure there's a lot of passion that you get in. So, can we please begin to now know that, how did this whole thing begin, and, whether it was a planned the aspiration that you had that yes, you are going to be a fashion choreographer, or we are all waiting to hear your story, and I would want you to begin with it, please.
First of all, thank you everyone for such a warm welcome. I really appreciate you all inviting me here, and I'm happy to share my journey with you all. And if today, by the end of the session, I manage to impact even a few of you all, I'll consider myself very privileged. So, the most frequently asked question I've ever encountered is, how do you be a show director? How do you go about it? In all honesty, there is no formal training that you can go through. It's not like you can go and do a degree or a course and um, learn it in a formal way. For me, I basically literally learned on the job. And the most valuable experience always comes from learning on site on the job. So let me take you right back to the start from where I started and how I started. So basically, I was in college and we would go backstage as dressers to assist in fashion shows. Now, what is the role of a dresser? What does a dresser do? So basically, in a fashion show, you have a backstage manager who controls everything that goes on backstage, and every model is allocated a dresser. So I started when I was in college to earn, extra pocket money. I started going as backstage as a dresser. As a dresser, you would be allocated one model. You were responsible to dress her completely. You were in charge of putting her outfit on, putting her shoes on, making sure her accessories are all there, and you were solely responsible for the way she turns out on ramp. Believe me, the role of a dresser is very important because you could as easily make her wear the outfit upside down, or you may have not put the zip all the way up, or you may have forgotten a vital piece of accessory. So basically, that's how I started. I used to go backstage and fashion shows as a dresser, where I would be dressing a model. But even then, when I did my job, I did it very with great diligence. I did it very earnestly. So I would look forward to these shows because it meant extra pocket money, and that was always welcome. And I continued doing that. And then one day there was a show, which a very big show for designers Sunit Verma and Ravi Bajaj. They're very big designers from Delhi, and even the show director was coming down from Delhi to execute the show in Bombay. The main backstage manager who was heading it needed an assistant, and she thought I was one of the smarter helpers because she would observe me and my model was always well turned out. So she asked me to come as her assistant and assist her on the show, which I did very happily because I got a little more than just a stipend that you get as a backstage helper. And then what happened was that the very same show, the very same format was going to Delhi. They were going to repeat the show in Delhi. And she was meant to travel for it. And I don't know what, she fell ill. She fell ill and she couldn't travel on the job. And the Delhi choreographers contacted her and said, "Who is that girl assisting you? Send her." So she called me up and said, "Listen, there's the show, the same show is going. Would you be able to travel and, execute the job?" And I mean, I was completely at loss whether I should do it or not because I had zero expertise. I had no experience. I didn't know a single person in this entire industry. So I was obviously second guessing myself that, like, will I be able to execute it? Uh, so over here, I want to pause and tell you all what happened. I got this opportunity, and if I had decided to not take it up or decided that maybe not this time, or let my fear overcome me, I want to let you know that opportunities don't come often. The point is, you've got to recognize it when it comes to you, and you have to have faith in yourself. You've got to bet on yourself, and you've got to take a chance on yourself and take the plunge. Also, at that point of time, I had just graduated and I had just got a job in a magazine. I had, by the way, done my graduation in literature. I studied English literature, did all six papers, and was all geared to, take my career as a journalist forward. So I'd already got a job in a magazine, and I got this opportunity. So I requested the magazine if I could take, some time off, and they were like, "You've just got this job. Sorry, we can't give you any days off." So I was again faced with an issue like here, the mindset is that, okay, this is a secure job, you're getting a fixed income. And nobody in my family, no, not me, was exposed to anything from the fashion world. We didn't even know it existed. And again, I was faced with a dilemma. Should I go with a secure job? And maybe another opportunity will come, I'll take it up. And I thought, no, maybe I'm young, I'll find another job, but let me go with this. So, with great hesitation, with a lot of fear, with again the background of like, I don't know what I'm even getting into, I went ahead and I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do this show. I went to Delhi, I did the show, and the choreographers from Delhi, they were very big choreographers, Arsha Kochar and Vidyun Singh. Their company was called Media Makers. At that point of time, they were doing every designer show, like all the top designers. Could it be Rohit Bal, JJ Valaya, uh, Abujani Sandeep Khosla, Sunit Verma, you name them, and they were doing the shows. And I did my show. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of hard work, but they thought I was very efficient and I did a great job, and they offered me more shows. So just like that, I moved from a backstage dresser to a backstage manager. And so now let me pause and tell you what is a backstage manager. What does a backstage manager do? A backstage manager is basically the backbone of a show. And at that point, now in the current scenario, all our backstage managers have a huge team working with them. They have assistants working under them. But at that point of time, when I started, I was literally a one woman show. What does a backstage manager do? Right from the time when she starts booking the models, the choreographer gets in touch with her, she starts booking the models, the choreographer will say, these are the models I would like. She's meant to contact them, book them, make sure they're available. Then we proceed to fittings. During fittings, every model's outfit has to be tagged with her name. There could be four pieces in an outfit. There could be a churidar, a kurta, a dupatta, two dupattas. Every piece has to get tagged with her name. Plus, she has many clothes in the show, right? So her outfit number one, two, three. After that, once that was done, and on the day of the show, I would have to supervise the ironing. I would have to allocate all the clothes to each dresser to make sure each dresser has her look with her accessories. Got to make a note of what shoes they are wearing. A lot. And believe me, I did all that. I was like a one woman army. So I would have to dress, make sure that I had the backstage in order. And there was another aspect, there's another vertical to it. I had to also make sure that I have to observe the rehearsals, make my notes, because not only do I have to get the backstage in order, I have to also cue the models on stage. The show director is sitting at the console and she is cueing me to cue the models on. Very often the models would ask, okay, in terms of choreography, what am I doing? Because, they have so much to remember themselves. So I would have to tell them, go straight, go left, go right, go as a pair. So not only was I handling what was going on backstage, I was also handling what I was going on front stage in conjunction with the show director. And a, like tremendous hard work goes into it. A lot of hard work goes into it. You've got to put a lot of blood and sweat into it and make sure that it comes with a lot of due diligence. And I somehow was very good at my job. Not somehow, I did put in a lot of hard work, and that's how I got good at my job. And just like that, my career took off. It was literally my career snowballed by word of mouth. Soon, models started speaking to other show directors that, hey, there's this girl on the scene. She's managing backstage and she's doing a very good job. She's able to streamline it. Uh, so, another show director contacted me saying, okay, can you do my show? And just like that, I started working with multiple show directors. And I have been credited actually for actually creating a niche in this industry of a backstage manager. Earlier there was, but it wasn't like an essential. Very soon, every show, an essential and integral part of it became the show of a backstage. I mean, the role of a backstage manager. And like I said, it my diary got full. I started getting calls from various show choreographers. So I was working with multiple show directors. I started making my own name in the industry. I started gaining a reputation. Models started being aware of, what I brought to the table. And before I know it, I was on my way. I mean, it was great money. I got to travel a lot. And I was so comfortable and complacent in my zone because when you become it was almost like I had a monopoly where a backstage manager was concerned. So I was working with multiple people and then I paused and I thought this is wonderful, and it really was wonderful for as long as it lasted because it got me so much adulation, it got me recognition, and at the same time I started getting inquiries that, hey, would you be able to direct a show? And again, I have to pause and I have to tell you that for a long time, and this I took longer to decide, I was like, no, I don't think so. But I kept getting inquiries that, can you do show? Can you execute it? And once again, I was like, should I take a plunge here? So I decided to again take a chance on myself. Once again, I was back to a place where I had literally no real training for it. I had no real knowledge about it. I didn't even know how to go about it. I used to just watch and observe and imbibe. And also, I would also think that, hey, okay, if I were to direct a scene or if I were to bring in my creative input, I would do it like this. This was not to second guess anybody else, but I would always think. So once I started getting multiple offers, said, okay, but I was not willing to give up my job as a backstage manager because that was my comfort zone. That was where I had created my reputation. So I still had my legs in both boats. I was still trying to do a balancing act. I started directing shows, but I was not willing to give up my primary job of a backstage manager because that's where most of my income came. But as I started doing shows as a show director, plus trying to balance as a backstage manager, there was a point of time where there would be a conflict of interest. Show directors that I was working with started becoming my competitors. And I totally understand that there is a conflict of interest there because shows that they could be doing, I was getting offered. And for this, again, I'm pausing and telling you all once again, when opportunities came my way, I could have, you know, paused and said, no, let me not take the plunge yet. But once again, when I was brought to that point of time in my life where I had to take a decision, once again, I jumped in without pausing and second guessing myself a lot. Though this time I did take a little longer to decide. And I was trying to balance both till one day I did a show. And on that show day, I finished the show, which was as a backstage manager, and it went super efficient. And I had an epiphany. I literally had an epiphany where I said, no, I have to stop now. I have to take a decision and I have to move and move on to this next stage in my career, in my life. I'd gone from a backstage dresser and moved on to a backstage manager. And I decided now is the time for me to move on and become a show director. I took that plunge. I had that moment of epiphany and I decided this is it. And that was a really hard time in my life because everybody knew me in a capacity of a backstage manager, but nobody really knew me apart from the few which had offered me, show directors. And as a backstage manager, my diary was full. I was working back to back. I was traveling. I had dates clashing because I was working with multiple other people and they all wanted me. Now I was competing with them. There was one show where there were 5 show directors pitching for it, for example. And I was the least known in the hierarchy. Nobody really knew me. And for a while, work dried up. And it was a really difficult phase in my life because I was used to a turnover of work and there was no work. And of course, a big aspect of it is financial security. I was earning very well as a backstage manager. I was traveling and there was no work. And I was so used to having this turnover. I was like, what have I done? I even paused and thought, I don't think this is going to work out because nobody's really approaching me. Should I now diversify and think of something completely different? And then I would get a show or a second one, or like it was very sporadic. But still, when I got those opportunities, I put in my heart and soul and made sure I gave it my best creative input. Till my turning point happened when Lakme Fashion Week approached me to be a show director. Now, Lakme Fashion Week has 2 platforms. They have the main show area where the main show area where all the big shows happen, and they have a smaller stage, which is a more ex- experimental stage where it's on a smaller platform. So at that point, they called me for a meeting and they said, would you be interested in taking over as a show director, but not in the main show area, not in the main show area at all, to become the show director at the smaller stage. At that point, I remember the first season when I started, it was called the Jabong stage. And then, of course, it went through various other names. It was called the 6 degree stage, then it was called the studio. And again, I was at a point where, of course, when they approached me, I thought, wow, Lakme is approaching me as a main show area director, but they made it very clear that no, you will be taking over this stage. And again, I paused and I thought, this is an opportunity for me to prove myself. No matter what the platform, it doesn't get bigger than Lakme. So whether it's at the main show area and or this, it's my chance to go out there and again show what I'm capable of. And it was the best decision of my life because at that area, in that show, we did some amazing work. It was not confined to the conventional runway. It was a empty shell where each show we could adapt the space and turn it on its head to create whatever we wanted. So fashion was always at the base essence of it because obviously the designer showcasing, but we would infuse drama in it. We would infuse theater in it. We would infuse live acts, infuse music with it, and completely turn it around and give it a twist that was not possible on the mainstream runway because there are certain restrictions over there. Here, it was limitless in terms of what you could do creatively. And believe me, it got so many eyeballs. At one point, I had models actually telling me, the models were walking in the main show area saying, oh my God, we love what is going on here. It would be so much more interesting to be part of this. And it was a great affirmation and it was a great validation that I was doing something right. And that stage area, when I started, was called the Jabong stage. It moved to the 6 degree. It started moving up from strength to strength. At this point of time, IMG was completely monitoring what I was doing. They were observing. And I think at the studio, I did like 2 to 3 seasons only as a show director there. And then IMG said, okay, you will continue to being a show director here, but now we will offer you shows in the main show area, but they will only be the 12 o'clock shows. The 12 o'clock shows were the first shows of the day. They had multiple designers, and that was in the main show area. So I progressed, and one season they said you will do only all the 12 o'clock shows and then go back to your studio. So for that one season, I was straddling both show areas. And I knew it was a litmus test for me. I knew that constantly I had to prove myself because they were observing what I could bring to the table. So I would do all all the 12 o'clock shows and then move back to my area and go back to, brainstorming and creating my shows at the 6 degrees stage. IMG observed, and then the next season after that, I got, for lack of a better word, promotion. And they said, okay, now we're moving you as a show director to the main show area. We'll find somebody else to take over your role at the studio. And that was my big up in my career because constantly I've had to prove myself. It didn't come easy to me. It didn't come on a platter. It again, to backtrack, I started as a dresser, moved on as a backstage manager, had a very dry run as a show director where I had no work. Whatever opportunities I got, I put my heart, soul, blood, sweat, everything into it. to prove myself and moved on to becoming a show director. Now, as soon as I got the visibility of a show director at Lakme, it doesn't get bigger than that as a platform. The visibility that Lakme has and the outreach that it has in terms of to designers, in terms of social media, in terms of even the outreach it has to the audience, it's huge. And of course, I got a lot of positivity out of it in the sense my shows were appreciated, my talent was appreciated, and just like that, I started getting shows from outside. Event companies started contacting me. They started asking me to direct their shows. And before I knew it, my wheels were turning again, and I was back to being busy, getting work. Of course, not as much as backstage director because now you're competing with people and pitching for the same job. And now I'm going to pause and explain to you exactly what do I do as a show director. I'll draw an analogy here and explain to you just as you have a movie. A movie cannot be made just by one person like a show director, like the director of the movie. There are various components to it. You have a cinematographer, you have a lyricist, you have a music department, you have your actors, you have your editor. You have so many components in it. Of course, movie is on a macro scale, a fashion show is on a micro scale, but the analogy holds the same. When you do a fashion show, you have various elements in it. You have your backstage manager, who's actually your backbone of the show. You have somebody who will compile and create music with you. You have your lights designer who will operate your lights, design your lights based on the specifications you give him. Now, most of the shows have massive LED screens, so you need to create content for it, which will complement the fashion show that you're putting out. You may or may not have a stylist. That sometimes some shows do, some shows don't. So there are various components. What does a show director do? That's where I come in. I will bring in all these components and tie them together with my vision, with my creativity. For example, I will start with my music person. I will sit with him. There is a certain scene where, like a certain fashion element, where I want sound effects. So I will tell him exactly what I want. Then I will design my lights. I will tell my lights guy, I want a spotlight here. I want to light them like this. I want the lights to be syncing with the music. I will sit with the graphics and create content. I will tell him exactly how I see a fashion scene unfolding. Uh, so as a show director, I bring in all these components, tie them in with my vision of how it's meant to unfold. I will be sitting and choreographing my scene, explaining it to my backstage manager that this is the way the models need to come out, this is the way they need to go out. And then I tie all of it together at the console. So at the console, it's a nerve-wracking job, guys. Let me pause and explain to you because you are cueing music, lights, graphics, models, all to sync at the same time. And you need to get your A game on at every possible level, at every possible time. One wrong cue and it can all go askew. I mean, one cue is missed, it can all that hard work, which you've spent so much time rehearsing, in a matter of seconds, it's decimated. And that's just the way it is. And I have to be truthful. It's not like every single time you catch your cue, but you live and learn. But the endeavor has to be there, and that goal and motive has to be there, that it has to go perfectly. And you are as strong as your team is. You have faith in your team. That's where I have to really credit all the people who work with me. They put in, they see me give my inputs, and their output is as much. So it's a give and take. and I'm as strong as my team is. But what matters most to me is that I do justice to what I'm given. So, for example, let me give you an example from Lerma. I did your graduation show, and one of your graduation collection sequences was, I remember, if I remember correctly, it was to do with thunder and lightning. It was inspired by Thor. Thor is the god of thunder and lightning. And I remember creating the scene where I had all the models on stage. I told my lights person, I want lightning effect. I told my music person, we start the sequence before the music comes in with thunder and lightning. And I told my LED person, the graphics, that on the LED, I just want this whole effect of clouds moving and thunder and lightning. And it all just came together. So I wish, I mean, later maybe Samira ma'am can share this clip, but, and that's how we created thunder, lightning, in Shanmukananda Hall, where you actually felt that you had rain coming down on you. So that's just one example which I did for Lamarck, and we've had so many. I had one sequence where I had all these models standing together, and I had an entire, just on the LED we created, a gate opening to, reveal the models. So basically that is what I do. That is I still feel I have a lot more to achieve, lot more to prove, but I hope you've enjoyed what I've told you so far. And like I said, if I've managed to... Sorry, Samira,
Yes,
over to you.
No, Aviz, it has been nice hearing you. And in fact, even on the chat box, we are getting non-stop appreciation and compliments for your work. And people have already started to say that, they are highly inspired and looking forward to, how you actually, right from being a dresser there to have today, the most looked for, the most wanted fashion designer, fashion choreographer. So I'm sure we want to see some magic before we take the conversation ahead. And I would like to share a short video of the fabulous work and the kind of magic that actually Babis creates on the stage. So Sachi, can we please have a quick video?
Thank you. Can see these comments? Can we take a writing someone behind this is showing a video. So going on.
Magical, as I just said, with all the birds flying, looking, I'm sure people in the audience must be having a very realistic feel of the whole, which we've already experienced many a times whenever you choreographed for Lamarck shows and you made it feel so real. So,
Can I pause? Can I just... So, in fact, I forgot to tell you all that this time, I mean, Lakme, from the last 2 seasons, introduced we always have the LED as a backdrop, but the last 2 seasons, they introduced an LED runway. So you basically have effects on the runway as well. Of course, it tripled our work, literally tripled our work, but also it tripled our output of the things that we could do and the creativity that we could put out. So that was another added element that they added in the last 2 seasons. Sorry, Samir, I was interrupting.
Oh, So, Babis, with this, I'm sure we will be seeing another clip to, also discuss the kind of work that you put up and how you actually synchronize all of this. But the kind of team that you've been, working with, where you have, of course, the light and the graphic guys and all that. Could you also share and put up some insights on how exactly and what is the role of a photographer? Because I'm sure we have a lot of photography students who are actually looking at, fashion photography and being there on the ramp. But then, what is it that the role of a photographer with you is?
So, Samira, that's a very pertinent and important question. Believe me, so when you do a fashion show, there's a very limited live audience, right? And there are limited number of seats, and the show, a good show, maximum, like we have a mandate, like at Lakme, to have it only within 15-20 minutes. So when a designer is putting in so much investment in a show, what is the takeaway? The live show, of course, is an amazing experience to have, but very few people get to experience it. What is most important and the biggest takeaway a designer has from any fashion show or even an event company or even a sponsor sponsoring the show, the biggest takeaway they have is the content they get out of the show. What is the content? The photographs and the videos they get. So photography for in a fashion show to capture it live is a very vital and very important part of the show. In fact, I understand that because, okay, so when you're doing lighting for a show, you want a certain mood, you want a certain effect, but that lighting may not be conducive for photographs. I always make sure that I look at it from that point of view. So I will actually go to the photographer's pit. There's always a media pit, right? I will make sure if there's somebody out there, request them to take a picture to see what is the output of the picture. Has it been able to capture has the lighting been right? Because when the lighting for a live show and the lighting for uh, pictures is a little different. So you have to be able to find the right balance. You want to give that creative look to it, but you also want to make sure your designers gets their money worth. So for a photographer, in terms of fashion, it's a very integral part and a very important role that they play because, like I said, the biggest takeaway from any show for the designer, which they will churn out on multiple platforms. They will they'll create lookbooks from it actually. So photography is a very important part, and I do pay attention and detail to it. Does that
I'm
answer your question?
you're very very particular and meticulous with your work, and I'm sure every corner and every niche is actually touched upon with your expertise. So, but then Bhavin, there's no formal training into being a fashion choreographer, and there are a lot of students who are also aspiring, along with not just doing designing today and being styling today. So, how do you think they should approach this profession of fashion choreography with no formal, training ideally being there?
The way I see it, hopefully, probably, maybe I will eventually down the line, with probably in conjunction with Lamarck, introduce like a course where you can actually, gain some kind of, because like I was just thrown into it. Like, you're thrown into the pit and you basically you swim or sing. But now that there's so much more exposure to this as an entire industry, maybe we can offer it as a module. But before, to answer your question, right now currently there's nothing like that. My advice is the best way to do it is come, watch, observe, learn on the job. For example, I'll give you an example. Just randomly, I don't know who this girl is, a kid. She contacted me on Instagram and she said, I'm really, really interested in being a show. I'm so interested in this profession. I'm clueless. I don't know how to go about it. Where do I even start? And she just contacted me on Instagram. And I said, you know what? I'm doing a show. Come, watch me. Uh, and she came. And now this is where I want to, she could have taken away a lot from it, but I think she chose to be more awed by the glam of it. So she lost sight of what she was there for. Even when we are rehearsing, for example, Lamarck, when I'm doing rehearsals, I literally put it together on the day of the show. Students are really interested, can watch, can sit in the audience and observe. They can see, they'll probably see me shout a lot, which I'm not proud of, but that's the best way to sit and learn. So anybody who's interested, they can come. Like at LACME once, there was somebody else who was really interested. I said, come and intern with me, or I can't pay you, but you can come and watch and observe and learn. That's how I started, and that's literally how. But then it depends on your level of commitment and your level of how interested are you and how far do you want to go.
Sure, that is, you know, with you always been very experimental, and I must say, very courageous to also be a risk-taking person. Of course, it has left the audience in awe for the kind of work that you put in. But how do you really get inspired, or how do you really manage this?
So there are two ways that it goes about it. Sometimes I'm a pen to paper kind of person when I'm sitting to plan my choreography. I like to go with a vision and something planned in my head that, you know, this, and sometimes I literally will shut my eyes and visualize. Okay, I'll see the models come from here, come from here. Sometimes it translates, sometimes it doesn't. Now, when you're doing a fashion show, the one thing that you don't have is a luxury of time. As you can see, you're literally putting it all together on the day of the show. Models will give you only one day in advance to come and do their fittings. The rehearsal has to happen on the day of the show. Now, if I go and start figuring out, okay, what should I do, doesn't work. Though a lot of people do that, each to his own. I prefer going prepared. So at home, I will sit, I will write my choreography. I've already decided that my music person, I want some light cues. I've already decided in my head that with this light cue, I want this light to come on with the music cue. Sometimes I have choreography planned in mind where I have I was like, okay, let me get them from here, there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I always have a plan B in mind. I always have amazing models. So I'll tell them, girls, I've not really tried this. Can we try this? If it doesn't work, so I'll try and give it 2, 3 times. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I say, okay, girls, forget it. It's not happening. Let's move on. Sometimes what happens is that I have a vision in mind and suddenly I'm seeing it on stage and I suddenly decide, oh, okay, I could do this. I'm thinking on the spot. I'm literally thinking on my feet. So it's a combination and amalgamation of both things. It's always good to go prepared, but it's always, always have your third eye open, your creative eye open, and be flexible. Sometimes I've had an input from my backstage manager that why don't you do it like this? It could look good, and why not? I love I love taking suggestions from everybody because nobody knows it all. I certainly don't know it all, and if you go with a mindset that I know it all, that's your biggest stumbling block. That's what I feel.
Amazing. I'm sure you are, a student for life is someone who can actually be the best teacher, and that's always something which comes in, with the kind of work that you've been doing. So before I take the next, conversation ahead and the next question, I think I want to show a quick video to the audience. Also, I would like to inform everyone that if you have any questions, you have a chat box right next there where you can post your questions, and I will take them to Wabiz and make sure that yes, Babis is very much here to actually be there, not just to inspire, but mentor you through this webinar series, which is something that is always done at Lamarck, where industry professionals share their expertise. And Babis, on just a phone call, was actually very much ready to do this all for the students and for all of you. I'm sure has been a wonderful opportunity, definitely. So can we just see this next video to take the conversation ahead? Oh wow, this was like so perfect. You know what is? I wonder how you actually managed to synchronize practically everything. Those strikes and those lines in between where the model stood. I mean, it looked as if everything was so perfectly measured and so perfectly in place, right from the lights to the graphics to the music. So how do you do this?
So can I tell you, putting to there, this was at one of the shows at Lakme, and when you do a show at Lakme, it's the least amount of time you get to put a because there are shows back to back. There's a show at 12 o'clock, 1:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 9, and it's back to back. And no, we don't get days earlier for rehearsal. You literally rehearse before your show. So coming to this was a really amazing and very challenging show. And I've literally put it together maybe 45 minutes before the show. So what we worked in preparation in advance was I sat with the graphics team and I said, let's create, I'll have these models standing there and let's start lighting them up with a circle. And like I said, now Lakme in the last 2 seasons have given an LED ramp. I said, first, let's just light them up. And then I told my lights director, I said, this is my vision. They're going to be standing here. We're going to start with a circle. Don't put lights on them. As the circle grows, start bringing in the lights. As the lights come in, then I told my LED person, I said, then we will start bringing lines from the ramp and we'll take them up to the stage. And so that we kind of, but you get to test all this just during rehearsals. It's not like I have the stage that I can test all this and then decide, okay, it works. So you have to be very clear with your vision. You have to be very clear. So
Sorry,
then
but
comes to a rehearsal. I told my models that you're going to be standing in a circle formation, and they have to come and take position in full blackout, and it's blackout. So, but that you have to also give my models a lot of credit. You need to give the models a medal actually. So be able to come. So we rehearsed it. I said, give me a blackout. They kind of mark their positions because you have some exit lights on, for emergencies. Through that, they mark where they stand. I told them I want a circle formation. Of course, that's in my choreography. I tell them exactly how I want to stand, how I want them to move forward. And then you put it together. So we had them coming in blackout, taking position, and the music, we had a live band actually. That's a live band playing.
yes.
So I told them that, the circle would come on. So with the beats, I want the circle coming on. And that's how we put it together. Does it answer your question?
Of course, but then it's always, and in fact, on the group also, I see a lot of people who are actually wanting to know that how do you may sure have some crisis situation, and then how do you come up with a challenge, a technical, I don't know, just a fallback of a model or a technical collapse. How do you really run the show?
So I would be lying if I would say that there is never a crisis. More often than not, there is a crisis. But there are two ways to go about it. If you let it overtake you, then it's a crisis. If you overtake the crisis, then there is a solution. It's as simple as that. If I get overwhelmed, okay, for example, when you do a show and you program lights, you have a lights board, right? And your lights designer, depending on all the cues that you have planned for each sequence, he will have programmed his lights. It's all programmed on a board. We were doing a show and everything was programmed. The show was at 7:30. It was an outdoor show. I still remember that. And at 7 o'clock, that entire board crashes. It just crashes. It's a technical glitch. What can you do? What can anybody do? It's a technical glitch. There's everything, all my efforts, cues, everything that I've programmed for the show, and lights is basically will make or break a show. It's an integral part of a show. And you were like, what do I do? What do we do? What do we do? And I had to think on my feet, and I said, okay, fine. This is gone. What can we do? With the existing lights that are there, which we will work on the spot and try to program it and go as we like. Then I would tell him, okay, bring these from the side. Okay, bring the front light. It was not programmed. And of course, a lot of credit goes to my lights designer who was able to. So that's why it's very important to have your comfort level as a team. That's why, even when I did the Learmark shows, remember Samira, I said, can I bring my team on board? Because they know
Yeah.
what I want. And so, like I said, again, probably repeating myself, if you let it overtake you, it's a huge crisis. If you overtake the crisis, you're coming up with a solution, and you have to. There's no choice. A lot of people are depending on you, right? If you are the captain of the ship, then the onus is on you to be able to, you know, sail in smooth waters, no matter how turbulent it could be.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've always been the best one to do it. I'm very sure we had this one small experience in one of our shows as well, and I know how you turned around the whole choreography and changed the entire way it went. And of course, I'm sure that at Lamarck also we make sure that it's your team because it's a set of all professionals. Everyone put in coming together because they help the students learn so much, and they help the students be there experiencing it live. So you're always been so welcoming, and I'm really grateful to you about that. So we also would like to know about your interactions with a lot of celebrities that you have them as showstoppers, and how does it does it really have a different experience, and what is it like?
Of course, I've had, I've been blessed that I've had multiple celebrities. I've been able to direct celebrities in my shows, and I don't think it gets any bigger than Mr. Bachchan, right? And I've had the privilege to direct him in a show for Vikram Fadnis. It was one of Vikram's biggest shows. It was his 25-year show in the fashion industry. Mr. Bachchan was gracing the show as a showstopper, so it doesn't get bigger than Mr. Bachchan. I've had multiple people. I've had Mr. Bachchan, I've had Hrithik Roshan, Kartik Aaryan, Disha Patani, Kiara Advani, Ileana D'Cruz, Shraddha Kapoor. My most favorite personal, Malaika, because when she walks the ramp, she owns it. She literally owns it. And there's just like a presence. So I'll give you an example. So there are different ways. Now there's so many of the there are so many showstoppers, celebrities. They do it so often that they're very well versed with it. So sometimes what I'll do, they won't even come for a rehearsal. I'll just take a video. Somebody will proxy for them. Their managers will show them the video, and they'll come and own it. But then there are some people like Sushmita Sen. She's really old school still. She is, I mean, she's a legend and everything, but still she would, and she's walked in multiple shows for me. She will still come for rehearsals. She will still carry her shoes for the rehearsal. What shoes she's going to wear in the fashion show. She will insist that I'm going to wear my shoes and I'm going to walk the ramp. I want to hear the music and I will go about it. So it's, Mr. Bachchan may not come for a rehearsal, but he will call you to his vanity van and ask you to give him directions of exactly what they want. They're actors at the end of the day. They're very creative people themselves, but they're also used to taking directions. And so they're looking for that, even if it's on a small platform as a fashion show. And believe me, some actors who are so comfortable in front of the ramp literally get butterflies. Oh my God, I have to walk the ramp. That is nerve wracking because on the ramp it's live. There's no second retake to it. There's somebody who's really fun, like Kalki. I mean, I have to be honest. It's not even that I gave her the direction, but she'll come and she'll do something really fun, and that's her creative input in the show. So it takes all kinds, and I've been blessed to work with almost all of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've also had a lot of fun working with you because that's what you make the experience always really lovable. Do you see a paradigm shift in the trends and the way fashion shows are presented today from what they used to be previously?
Definitely, yes. I mean, with time and technology, you evolve, right? I mean, that's the only way you will grow. So, even in terms of like an example that I gave you, Lakme, they decided, how do we up our game? Having an LED ramp is like they're the only ones who've done it. So like I said, with time and technology, everything evolves, but every show doesn't have to have a LED backdrop. It doesn't. Even now when I do shows, for example, we did a very interesting jewelry showing. We had this backdrop and we had just cutouts in it with a model's face with just a jewelry. And it was like an art installation. We had models standing down, and above them we had this huge white screen and just models cut out with, so you could only see the jewelry on them. And we had it like an art installation where people would come, walk around, and have that experience. So that had no LED background. Then we did a really, there was a collaboration between the designer Nikhil Thampi and Hermosa. Hermosa is a very, very amazing furniture brand. Its origins are from Jaipur. So we had their opening show in Jaipur. The whole set was created by the event company with the furniture pieces. And we had Nikhil Thampi's inputs in the furniture design as well as the clothing. And how did we amalgamate the clothes with the jewelry, with the furniture? And it was an amazing show to have because it was like a set that the event company created. And my input was how to bring the models about, do justice to the furniture pieces, and mix it up with glamour and fashion. So it's not necessary that every single show has to have a content or an LED screen. Of course, that enhances it. For example, another example I can give you.
तू ऊपर रख पढ़ियो तो
Somebody's mic is on.
Yeah,
So for another example, which I'll give you last, we have a show in a auditorium. And I thought, okay, the audience is so used to seeing, okay, this is the mouth of the show, models will come from it. I have to take credit here. I don't take credit often, but you know, the conceptualization, I said, let me turn it around. Let me get the models coming from all sides. Let me get them coming from the media pit. In one show I had, again, where there was no LED screen, what I had a model seated in the audience in blackout. They were seated in the audience, and suddenly the lights black out, show music starts. The audience is so programmed to see the model coming from the front, and suddenly one girl stands up and we light her. Then another girl stands up and we light her. Then another girl stands up and we light her. And then they start coming onto the stage. So it depends. I mean, it doesn't always have to have an LED backdrop, but you have to constantly be churning out your creativity. And of course, now the evolution of fashion has been so much, it makes you want to up your game every single time.
okay. Bhavik, we are definitely, a little bit ahead of time, but then I'm sure we have a lot of questions on the chat box. I mean, I'm sure I'll have to pick a few. Yeah, it's just the scroll is just running around, but then I'm going to just pick up a few so that, I'm beginning with Mr. Nelson, who wants to know that between outdoor and indoor shows, which one do you find more challenging?
Oh, definitely outdoor. Definitely outdoor. Because first of all, we've had instances where the weather has just turned. It's not with you. The show that I was talking about with the light thing, light box, the light programming console crash was an outdoor show. Indoor, it's more control. You know, it's definitely more control in terms of your lighting, in terms of your temperature. I would say outdoor is definitely more challenging.
Okay, well, with this, we also have a question from Gayatri, who wants to know how do you keep yourself up with, the interesting lights that you're bringing to the show. So how do you keep updated with the latest technology?
So again, full disclosure, I should actually be like watching things, updating myself. But like I said, full disclosure, I don't know anything. I know my vision. I know what I want. I explain it to my lights director. I always ask his input that you have something that you want to offer, which is in terms of technology, that's something that you may want to experiment with. So I give him that creative freedom, but I should be actually observing international shows because international shows have sometimes budgets which are equivalent to movies, the kind of shows they put out. but in all honesty, I don't watch. Sometimes I mean,
Okay.
yeah. But
So,
I'm very clear with the vision that I have in mind and how I want to execute it.
okay. Well, Pratik would also like to know where he's asking if you, how do you manage with designers? Because they may be wanting something specific, and then how do you offer that? So that's his question.
Pratik, right?
Yes,
Was
Pratik.
it Pratik?
Yes,
Pratik,
Pratik.
very good question, because that is a big challenge. Very often, for example, even a student, you are creating your collection for the last 3 years. It's very close to you, right? You know that, okay, when I have my graduating show, this is the way I visualize it. I want it to come on ramp like this. This is the way I see it unfold. What happens? Barbies comes on the scene. She sees your clothes only at fittings, and she has a certain vision, which may not be in conjunction with your vision of 3 years. But that's also in a movie, it happens. The movie is so close to a director's heart. He doesn't have the ability to be subjective about it. So that's where a good editor comes in. And the editor will say, no, as amazing and effective as you may think the scene is, it has to get chopped. So that's what happens with designers. Very many times, a designer knows exactly what he wants. Now, that is my role as a show director. Of course, my first way to approach it is always ask them their opinion. Then, what do you want? How do you see it? Tell me what music you have in mind. Then I will hear them out, because that's the least I can do. I will hear them out, and then I will say, okay, sometimes it may work as I may be in agreement. Sometimes I may say that, why don't we try this? Why I don't think this music piece is working. Very often I've changed them. My forte is music. And very often I've changed the music. The designer wants something else. I always say, give it a year, hear this out. This is the way I plan to execute it with my piece of music. So, it's a give and take. Sometimes I have to be flexible. Sometimes I have to also be does it answer your question? I mean, have you got it?
Yeah, I'm sure it does because we've also seen at shows where students have been so close, so brainstorming. You gave them that space to you heard them out, and you always put up a best show. With this, we also have a question from Manisha where she wants to know how long was your journey, right from backstage manager to a show director? How many years have you given to this entire career twist?
That's yeah. So I've been in this for 20 years. Like I said, I started as a backstage dresser. That's when I was in college. I started getting my first show as a backstage manager when I just graduated, and then I made the shift from a backstage manager to a show director. That took me a long time to make that shift, but so I've been a show director maybe for the last 7 years.
Okay. Wow. We have a lot of questions actually rolling in, but I'm sure we are. I don't know, Vadil, if you want to.
I'm happy to address it if you want to continue.
Okay.
I'm happy to address it if you want to continue.
Sure, we can. I'm sure we can take a more which are very much there. Where of course one of them is again from Mr. Nelson, who was also wanting to know that there were supermodels era, where you had Meher, Madhu, Noyan, all of them. So do you think that does exist even today?
Sorry, Samira, I didn't get your question. You were breaking. You were breaking. I can't get.
Okay, sorry. Am I audible now?
Yeah, now you are. No, I can't.
So the question is where
Samira.
there was an era for supermodels. Visya and Meher and Noyonika, every had Madhu and Meher J, one of them. So do you think that exists even today?
Uh, of course, you have, like, certain models who still are, I mean, who are so superior. But I think now, at that point, the fashion industry was very nascent. There were only that many models. So for the good ones to shine, they didn't really have that much competition. But of course, they were supermodels. You cannot take that away from them. But now, with with the way it's been progressing, fashion growing as an industry, reaching a platform where it's accessible to everyone. Even the role of a model, the turnover of number of models has increased. So of course, you have some essentials in a show, and you still have your supermodels like now a Candice Pinto or a Dipti Gujral or a Sucheta Sharma or a Dinah Irappa or a Kanishta or a Ricky Chatterjee. These are really good models because they still are amazing when they step foot on the ramp. But also now, for every show, everything, how it's all budget driven. You have amazing models which may not have necessarily reached that level, but have the potential to. And my advice is that those we find and recruit through agencies. A big way now to go forward is, I would say, earlier there was a lot of freelance models, but now the way forward is to tie up with a agency because they position you correctly, and they'll send you for the correct number of auditions. And like I said, fashion is a very, I mean, ramp shows is one vertical of this entire industry. This entire industry is huge. You have ads, you have web series, I mean, you have magazine shoots. A, uh, uh, agency will position you and send you auditions to cover all these verticals, not just for the fashion show. So anybody who's aspiring to be a model, I would definitely recommend, and that's the advice I always give to people who contact me: tie up with an agency, because now everything is more streamlined. It's become very professional, and that is a professional way forward. Like for when I'm casting for my shows, for example, if I have a show, my backstage manager will first contact agencies. Agencies will immediately send your photographs, your comp cards, your walk videos. So it's just more streamlined for us to shortlist and audition.
Sure. Ruby would like to know, you've of course received a lot of awards, but which one was the first one, and what is it so different that you had, done for that show that actually got you an award?
Oh, no, no, no. The award that I won was basically it was the first fashion platform awards by India Fashion Awards, and it was not for a particular show. There were different. I was pitted against different show directors, emerging show directors. That was the category, and they did saw an overview of all my shows in the last 6 months or whatever I've done, and like they saw an overview of others as well, and that's how I won the award.
Amazing.
So it wasn't for any particular show, it was just an overview of, as a show director, how I've progressed.
Okay. We have a question from Priyanka who wants to know, which has been your most creative or innovative show where, you had really, like it was a challenge that you had to take up?
Okay. So there was the show for Magnum, and it was by this agency called Cab Experiences. They were the event company, and Magnum had tied up with Label Life, and they had three showstoppers: Suzanne Khan, Malaika, and Bipasha Basu. And each of them, the whole theme was get in touch with your wild side. What was so challenging about the show? The entire show was augmented reality, which means we had them walking, and then we actually had these creatures of a leopard, of a lion, of a panther walking on stage with them. And that was called augmented reality. Yeah, it was super challenging because to get the technology right. And so if you will go to my Instagram, I think you'll have to go all the way down to maybe 2016 or 17. I've posted videos, and to get that in sync of these live creatures walking the ramp and then disappearing, and then having these showstoppers with the ice cream, it was super challenging.
I'm sure, you know, and even to hear of it, it's like, wow, but then how did you do this? How did you really manage it?
Yeah, it was called augmented reality, and of course, the event company had got the technology down, and I had to merge the technology and make sure the models got it on perfect cue. Because even when the model is walking on stage, there's an animal walking alongside her. So it was, and that's just, I mean, it was done on a screen, so it's augmented. So that was really challenging.
We have a question which I'm sure is very much, you know, where a lot of students are looking at, if you know, probably looking at assisting you, and that's where Maria wants to know that what is a skill that you would need, you know, in the people who have to assist you. So, what is it that you would be looking into them for?
The same skill that I had, just a drive to learn, not being scared of hard work, mm, being open to make owning your mistakes, because if you make a mistake, we are all human and we are bound to. To date, I will make mistakes, but to be able to own your mistakes, those are the skill sets I'm looking at. You, of course, should have some kind of, you know, a creative bone in your body, but that's fine. That you can learn on the job. So I look for the same skill sets that I had. When I started as a dresser, what was my job? My job was to put clothes on a model, to make her wear her shoes right, to make sure accessories were there. I didn't care what my job was. I just did it with so much diligence. That's how I got picked up by the backstage manager to assist her. There were many helpers. There were many backstage dressers. She picked me because she thought I was the most efficient one. And I had a no-brainer job, in the sense I just did it with diligence. That's a skill set I would look for anyone to assist me. The drive to learn, to be able to be efficient, to not shrug hard work. And you know,
Well,
let me pause here and tell you that all the backstage managers who are currently backstage managers most often have all been my backstage dressers. The same way that I was picked out by a backstage manager, when I turned backstage manager, for a long time, it was just a one woman show, one woman army. When we started having assistants, how did I find my assistants? The same way. I would say, oh, this backstage dresser is good. I would pick her out. And today, they themselves are backstage managers doing running shows independently themselves. So it's like, you know, a chain.
right, I'm sure. We have a question from Pratibha, who's probably from Delhi, because she wants to know in Delhi if you would have any, you know, good agencies that you would want to share them with.
Share agencies for what?
Share the names of the agencies who are for models, modeling agencies.
Modeling agencies are very good agencies. There is a Runway Lifestyle, which is a very good agency. There is Tuab, there is Inega, there is Purple. There are lots of agencies, but these are the good agencies.
We have this one question actually scrolling down with many, you know, Chahat, Sudarshan, Hemangi, all of them very similar, you know, of course in different languages, where they've been trying to understand that what is the effect of COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19 on the fashion industry, because you have, you know, this pandemic has social distancing to maintain, and the situation to run the fashion shows. Do you think it's going to turn out to be digital? What do you know, what's your say on this?
Of course, like COVID-19 has hit every industry, every small business to every industry has been affected. And so we are no different. In fact, events and event companies and agencies, we will in fact be the last ones to start up, because we're the bottommost rung of the in terms of essential services. We're not that, we are a glamorous industry. So first, the essential services will start. Things that are vital in everyday functioning, those small businesses will start. We're going to take some time, but so of course we are hugely affected. But once again, we adapt. We have to move with the times, and a very plausible way to go about it is hosting digital shows. As long as I get to direct them, I'm fine with it. But
Wow.
there will be there. In fact, we already have feelers that how do we adapt fashion and put it out on a digital platform where people may not necessarily, because social gatherings is not going to be allowed for a long time. So, but people still need to put their products out there, right? So we're already in the process of trying to brainstorm and think how else can we take this forward.
Amazing. I'm sure Vav is actually on the chat box. I'm having a lot of, as I said, still things pouring in, but we will have to take a pause somewhere for the session today, and we are very much enlightened with this. But I'm going to take one last question where we want to know: do you regret taking up fashion choreography because it has come, it just came on to you, and you are doing a fabulous job, definitely. But do you regret taking this up as a career or a profession? And what would be your that one or a couple of advices to all these young audience who are hearing you and actually there to be inspired by you?
To answer the first part of your question, I love my job. I love it. I don't regret it at all. I regret that I should have taken the plunge sooner. I delayed on that. I procrastinated because I was so comfortable in my zone. But I'm so grateful that I took the plunge and I love what I do. I want to get better at it. I want to take it to newer and higher levels, and absolutely zero regrets. Zero. And my advice to everybody who's out there, uh, just always recognize an opportunity and grab it when it comes to you. It's not going to come over and over again. It's very rare that you'll get the same opportunity twice. If you decide that, if you take a chance, take a risk, bet on yourself, and you will emerge a winner. Have confidence, and also have the mindset that I'm going to stumble, I'm going to fall, I'm probably going to fail, but I will stand up again. And with that kind of inspiration that you bring to yourself, you will not falter.
Bobby, you really started pretty early. I'm sure at a very, very young age when you said you were in college and that's when you started your career. So I'm sure it has been really an amazing journey so far, and so has it been, for all of us to hear just the perfect beginning for our webinar series, which is Signature, where we wanted to have inspiring stories of and journeys of pathbreakers. You've been one of them. You've been like a leading pioneer. An amazing. I also got a appreciation where it said that Babis is a Wonder Woman. Babis is a Superwoman. So that's been coming on chat, and I'm just sharing a few of these compliments which have come in to all of you. So it's been really, really very nice. I'm sure. And we are going to share all of this with you, Wabil. But at the same time, I would want to share with all the audience up here. Yes, you want to say something?
Yes, can I just say one last thing?
Sure, please.
I just want to thank all of y'all for being such an appreciative audience. Y'all have boosted my morale, and I'm very thankful to all of y'all. Please do get in touch with me, tag me on Instagram, and I will repost everything that you have to say. I'll repost everything. I promise you that. And I really appreciate you as an audience. So do get in touch with me.
Perfect. So some of the closing lines also not so, but then there are people, the audience who's just constantly typing and letting me, be on their behalf, an instrument to tell you that how wonderful they've, had having you, hearing you. And the best thing that they've liked is that you were so candid, you were so honest about your journey. And these are the kind of words which are coming in from the audience, and I'm sure they are all very, very happy about it. So Sushmita also in the closing where she's writing that she's so happy for, thank you for guiding us. We are really glad working with you backstage, and all of this is coming in from many of them. Even Kamal has written a big, long experience of how wonderful it has been working with you. and I'm sure it has been a very delightful and very inspiring hearing for each and every one of us. So thank you, Wabil. Thank you on behalf of the entire team at Lamarck, all of them who have put in. I'm sure to tell you all, it's just been a week, but then every day, in fact, there has this show, this webinar may also look like one of those fashion shows which just come into, and within an
I
hour the
know.
audience and takes it back. But Babis has been really putting in locating the right videos for all of you to get the right photographs to give you that experience. Put in so much that has been a week full of course, portions of sleepless nights, which I would say. So it has been amazing. Thank you, Babin, for being there for Lamarck, always standing strong for all the students, all the faculty members and the team members. And today, when we actually heard from where it all began, it's really been very amazing. So thank you. Would request all the people in the audience to of course join us on Insta, and for Wabil and at Lamarck, be there and tag us and share all that you want to on the social media. We'll be very happy to take it from there. I'd also like to make a small announcement about the next two webinars which are also lined up for tomorrow and day after. So please join us for them. We have Mahima Sayani, who's going to be talking about life on a fashion retail as a fashion retail entrepreneur, and then we will have Lavina Baldota, who's also going to be talking about life of an art connoisseur. So we are going to have a lot of insights from all of these people. So please be there. Looking forward to meeting all of you back again tomorrow. And thank you, Abis. Please stay safe, home, be healthy, have a lot of fun, definitely, while you're at home, because these are some of the best moments that you all will be having with your family members. So please do have a lot of fun. With this, I'd like to conclude the session for today. And yes, a big namaste to everyone. And thank you, Abis. Thank you for being there. Yes,
One
Abis.
second.
Sure.
Just on Instagram, it's at Barbie's Mehta, just in case anybody wants to know out there.
Yeah, sure.
And I look forward to hearing your interaction and your feedback, because we couldn't cover everybody's questions. Thank you very much for having me, Samira.
We do regret that, with the time constraint, but I'm sure we still went a lot over time. Thanks to Wabil, where she happily agreed to, take up all the questions after that. So thank you once again, Wabil, for being there. I'm sure everyone has had a great session.
Someone just asked on the chat box, what is the Insta page name? So I don't know how to share it, I mean.
Yeah, sure. Sakshi, can you please share the Insta page for Wabil and for this on the chat box?
Because somebody just asked that.
Yeah, sure. We'll have that go on the chat session, and at the same time, what we will do is we have everyone over the email and sessions with us. So we will also post it there. So Ruby has done that. So I'll just share the same with everyone on the chat box.
Thank you. Bye, yes. Samira. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So everyone has that on the chat. Wabil Mehta's Instagram handle, and you can take it from there. Thank you. Thank you, Wabil.
Thank you. Bye.